Twins about done on the West Coast, but the trade deadline still has 8 days to get here. How bad do the Twins want to punt on 2025? To find out, let's get Locked On Twins, trade deadline style.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to source for the top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis. Personally, it's my favorite show of the Imperial Lodcast Podcast Network, which, by the way, brings you your team every day. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and hit it right here, too, so it'll say Locked On Podcast correctly, wherever applicable. I'm Dave Brown, an MLB writer who has a non-zero chance to be traded to Locked On White Sox. I'm also a BBWA member and a Hall of Fame voter. Across the Great Plains of cyberspace is Brandon Warne, who would volunteer to be part of a big return for Frank Viola if he had to do it all over again. Brandon was a Twins fan who became a Twins writer, and now he's both. You can find his work at Access Twins, the newsletter, and mine periodically at Zone Coverage. On this podcast, the Twins have a 16% chance of clinching a wild card spot, according to Fangraphs. So you're saying there's a chance, just in case they don't go for it, as in try and stand pat for the playoffs. We should be preparing ourselves to say, nice bloodletting, Falvey, with the trade deadline coming July 31st. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when their first $5 bet wins. Why don't you get to FanDuel right now and start FanDueling? So, Brandon, Twins series wrapping up in Los Angeles, California against the Dodgers. But we're focusing on the trade deadline here with about 8 days to go before it happens. And we've kind of broken up our shows in this way. We're going to look at 3 players in each episode who stand a chance, whether it's 0 to 100, I don't know, of being traded in the next 8 days. And today's guys are Harrison Bader, Danny Coulombe, and Willi Castro. These are players who are free agents at the end of the season. They're not the only ones, I don't think, who are free agents, but they let me clarify that. Bader has a mutual option in his contract. So he could be a free agent if he doesn't want to come back and the Twins don't want him back. It's a reasonable amount of money. He's been a very good pickup. I think it's something like $12 million guaranteed next year. He's the first guy we want to talk about. Danny is 35 years old, and he's always a pending free agent, it seems, at this point in his life. It actually would make some sense to move Danny, even though he's done his job as well as anybody this side of Byron Buxton on the team. He's been terrific. But he is 35. He's had periodic arm trouble. You know the story. Willi Castro is a favorite among some in Twins territory. Rocco seems to like Willi a lot. Tom Kelly likes Rocco a lot. Doesn't that count for anything? Sometimes you run hot and cold on Willi because he might make a curious play on defense or a swing choice that no one can understand. And those things happen. But these are guys who stand a decent chance of, for one reason or another, not coming back next year. So if the Twins decide that this year is hopeless, and by that I mean, by the time the trade deadline's here, they're probably still going to be well in mathematical range. But the Twins have given us signs this season that it just ain't their year. Or either the Twins have given us these signs or they've just happened. There is a bit of news today already, and the game hasn't been played yet as we record, but David Festa, Let's Party, is back on the injured list because of a sore shoulder. So that's not great. Eric Fetty has been designated for assignment. He's sort of like, Eric Fetty's been like on a long-time wish list of Twins fans and writers. Well, we could just get Eric Fetty. Everything would be fine. Well, eventually the league has caught up to Eric Fetty down in St. Louis, and he hasn't been effective in quite a while. So it's not really fun Fetty going on in his world. But he's been designated for assignment. Long way of saying, I mean, maybe the Twins would be interested in picking him up to fill some starts. the Twins continue to be, because they play so, because everybody's in it, hardly anybody's out of it, and the Twins, hither and yon, they'll play interested, they'll play competitively, and then it'll look like they're a million years from being playoff viable, in the next series. They're really hard to read. But that's where we're at. It's a confusing time. Harrison Bader, Danny Coulombe, Willi Castro might not be Twins in a week. What do you see happening here with these three gentlemen?
I think it comes down to the trade return. And like I've said, if you're going to go into these trades and not get anything back that you feel pretty confident is going to help you in the near-ish term, I'd probably just stand pat. Excuse me. At the risk of going there, trading a guy like Harrison Bader and not getting much back really just helps the Pohlads save a few bucks. And even then, they're probably still going to be expected to pay the quote-unquote buyout on his deal, which was thrown in there so that he could basically be guaranteed a larger salary than what his base looked like. As far as Coulombe, I mean, if the right answer or the right offer comes around, you certainly have to think about it. 35, basically year to year at this point in his career, and kind of always has been. So, I mean, I don't want, with Brandon Kintzler, the Twins got a left-handed pitcher who never made it. I don't even know if he made it past Double-A. I really don't want to swim in those waters again. 2 months of Danny Coulombe, to me, even if you are eliminated from the playoffs in early September, or at least you're playing very minimally meaningful games in the beginning of September, the path to getting there is a lot more saleable. Like the waters to the means to the end are just easier to handle if you've got Coulombe. If you want to do right by him and trade him to a contender, I guess I get that, but I'd rather see him keep him. I'd rather see him keep Bader, and I'd rather see him keep Castro. And the big thing with Castro is he's going to be a free agent, and I wonder, is he a qualifying offer caliber player? I mean, if he wants a 3-year deal, let's say $45 million, the qualifying offer is right around 20, right? Like usually 20-ish.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, getting him back for 1 year at $20 million would be steep, and I don't think they'd offer that on the basis of they don't want to pay him that. However, if you can offer him that and weigh that versus a potential trade return, like how do those scales tip? And I think that's part of the calculus.
Bader makes the list of he's number 29 on the Athletics big board of possible trade candidates this deadline season. There are a number of Twins who are on there. Let's see. Joan Duran is 8th. Griffin Jax is 9th. I don't know if anybody else is.
Who's first on that list?
Jarren Duran.
Oh, that one's the Joe. Okay. I saw one. I thought it was the Athletic that Joe Ryan was number 1.
No. No. Let's see. Ryan O'Hearn, Ryan Helsley, Brian Reynolds. He's not on the list. Joe Ryan is not.
And I think if you're weighing the likelihood of him being moved as compared to Sandy Alcantara, it's Sandy in a walk. I mean, it's very much more likely that a lot of pitchers get traded and not Joe Ryan.
Sandy Alcantara pitched well today. I don't know if it's like the first time all year, but it seems like it. Some of us might have picked him up recently on waivers in their fantasy league. Just
strange
for an if come. But so he's finally pitching well. I don't know. You think he's going to move, but that good performance certainly helps Alcantara move, and maybe will just distract people from not going after Joe Ryan. The Twins, as I mentioned, they're in Los Angeles, and I look at the kinds of things that the Dodgers could use, and I'm sure they're probably salivating over, Griffin Jackson, Joan Duran. That's exactly what we need. But it's probably more likely that the Twins would be willing to trade them Coulombe and Brock Stewart or something. A Brock Stewart reunion with the Dodgers would be funny. But I don't know. It's we're going to take our first break and talk more about these trading times when we come back to Locked On Twins.
Summer sports are in full swing. You might not know it looking outside in Minnesota today because it is pouring rain. But whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. Think about it this way. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? Because with FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach or soaked out in their front yard, as it were, today. I again use FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, not loving the one that you may be watching of the Twins right now with Chris Paddock against the Dodgers. But things should be a little better as the Twins have Thursday off and get the Nationals in town. Then you got the Red Sox. Then you got the trade deadline. So lots of different bits of action here. You can stay involved, though, with FanDuel. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Again, got to emphasize that fast payout. Nothing worse than completing a job, winning something, and having to wait to be paid. About that freelance lifestyle, right, Dave Brown? But with FanDuel, whether you're placing a same-game parlay or even just watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you and me are part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started.
We love Locked On Twins. We're back for our second segment, and we're talking about...
Do you think
Yes,
FanDuel is named after Ty Cobb going into the stands and beating up a fan?
That story might be apocryphal, by the way.
Yeah, it
I
sounds
heard
like
that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think that might be true. And in fact, it sounded as though Cobb's nasty legacy was a bit overstated.
Perhaps by that Al Stump sports writer guy, as portrayed by Robert Wool in the movie Cobb, where Tommy Lee Jones was Cobb and was said to be just an absolute lunatic. And like a lot of the stories were exaggerated or made up or didn't even happen, which I guess is the same thing as made up.
Yeah.
But which fits into this these times that we live in, because I feel like a lot of this stuff is just made up. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of talking going on between, like, all kinds of things are said between the Falveys of the world, be they on the Twin side or the other side. But anything that where we really get close to a deal, I just don't know. I go back again at the risk of repeating myself. In fact, it's a pretty good risk because I'm doing it. I still look at the situation the Twins are in as far as trying to sell the team. Where that is with the Pohlads, no one knows for sure. Most importantly, the front office of the Twins doesn't know for sure and doesn't know where it's going to be in 6 weeks or 6 months or this time next year. So, when you weigh what you should do as an organization, maybe it makes sense to, you see a guy like Danny Coulombe out there who's 35 years old and always seems to be, that next shoulder issue or whatever, or elbow issue is just kind of around the corner waiting. It does make sense. Like if this were, if the Twins weren't an organization of human beings, if it was just a bunch of numbers on a ledger, it would make sense to trade anybody who is not going to be under contract for next year. And there's that whole thing about, you can go back and get them later in free agency. Like that hardly ever happens. But, you could tell yourself that. But considering that Falvey might be setting the table for some other regime in Minnesota, why would he do that?
Really,
why is that interesting to him to do? I don't, you're close enough. There's a bunch of teams in front of you for the wild card, but it wouldn't take much to be in front of those teams.
No.
And to have one or two teams in front of you for the wild card. It's, that's why there's still a 17% chance, according to Fangraphs, that the Twins make the wild card. Because it could change in a week. They could do another 13-game winning streak or even 7.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Danny Coulombe to the Dodgers for Noah Miller. Bring Noah Miller back home. And, like you're saying, with Willi Castro hitting free agency, they don't have much of a backup shortstop. Brooks Lee is in that conversation. He's the 22nd prospect in a pretty good Dodgers system. Otherwise, they are stocked. Like I would guess half of their top 30 is right-handed pitchers. And so between either maybe a reunion with Miller or a right-handed pitcher that maybe the Twins really like, who isn't as immediately in the plans for the Dodgers. Otherwise, as noted, they are very top heavy at the lowest levels in the minors. So I don't know what a trade like that will look like, but if you could get a guy like Miller, like I said, prospect 22, he is 22, as a utility man for Coulombe, I would have to think about that one.
The issue, you kind of alluded to it. If you're still going for it, Coulombe is still kind of a key cog in the bullpen. He gets you 3 outs in the middle of the game and sometimes they bring him in as early as the 4th inning. It just happened the other day. And with Festa going on the injured list, see, I keep getting back to, well, how do Rocco's Twins get from here possibly to the playoffs? And taking Danny Coulombe out of the calculus for the bullpen is not going to be helpful, because they just put Festa down on the injured list, and they're bringing back Travis Adams, who does not excite me very much. And as good as Marco Raya has been pitching in the minors, fair or not, I go back to when he was invited to spring training, I believe. And as soon as he was going to pitch in a game, he like hit a bunch of people. He couldn't throw any strikes. I just have a feeling that something like that is going to happen. I just don't think they have the depth in the system. I think that, that is a white flag. We're at the point with the pitching depth, with who's hurt and who's effective and who's doing well in the minors, that if you did move Coulombe for Noah Miller, which part of me that appeals to, honestly, considering the lack of depth at the high levels on shortstop. Although, how long till Kalen Culpepper gets here?
He might make the major leagues before Miller.
He might. He probably next year probably has a chance if he keeps accelerating at this rate.
Yeah.
But as far as 2025 goes, it's not like the team has earned our trust or earned a chance. They're not owed anything. It might make sense in the long run, and in fact, it does make a lot of sense to make a move like that, moving Coulombe for someone like Noah Miller. Mm-hmm. But it still bothers me that, well, then you're punting. If you move Coulombe or Castro or Bader, even if you move Coulombe, you're punting on this season. We've seen what Thunder from Down Under does from the left side in the bullpen.
I mean, that's the point is, the drop off from Coulombe to whoever takes over. That's a big deal.
That's not too good. So you're giving up. And if you give up on Coulombe, you might as well trade Castro. And if you trade Castro, you might as well trade, the next guy after that.
Yeah.
Bullpen depth, Brock Stewart. We're not doing a Brock Stewart show yet, but Brock Stewart's a guy who's been absolutely terrific. It's been wonderful. It's been it's another case where if the Twins were having a better season overall, Brock Stewart would be, at least for the team, in conversation for a comeback player. It's been terrific. But that next injury is, I always feel like there's house money here. It could happen at any time. If they're going to trade Coulombe, they should trade Stewart. Probably both of them to the Dodgers for someone maybe even better than Noah Miller. But that means you're giving up on 25. That means you're giving up on it.
How about someone named Kyle Hurt? That'd be kind of ironic, wouldn't it?
Oh, great. Didn't they Google that? You didn't Google Hurt?
He's 27 in MLB, and they have him on the prospect list. I guess that's rules is rules until you're not. You're a prospect until you're a suspect or something like that.
The Dodgers have a history and maybe it's an addiction to trading for pitchers with arm trouble history. That's one of the reasons. I mean, you can't overlook that. They have so many people on the injured list, the Dodgers, right now. But part of it's not just like, oh, doggone it, bad luck. No, they keep trading for people who have a history of injury problems, and that's why it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Look no further than the starter on Wednesday, Tyler Glasnow.
Yes. I mean, that was a move that the Dodgers made where they traded Ryan Pepio, who does a really good job of not dominating like Glasnow, but doing pretty well. being maybe a top 40 starting pitcher rather than the top 4.
Mhm.
But someone who's out there every day. There's a lot of value in the kind of innings and the effort that Pepio brings to the Rays.
Right.
That the Dodgers wish they had right now. They did that trade last year. They brought Glasnow in and extended him. Wow. For a 5-year deal, thinking that we're going to have this guy pitch in the World Series. They won the World Series anyway. Glasnow didn't get anywhere near it because he was hurt.
Mhm.
So it sort of goes to show you how things don't necessarily make a lot of sense a lot when they make these trades. But the Dodgers have a penchant, an appetite, if you will, for the pitcher who might be 10 pitches away from his last pitch. So part of me wants to take advantage of that. If this were like a computer simulation, I would be all over that. But these are people, and you're trying to win, and you're still, even though the team has not done an efficient job of winning this year, and it might be a lost cause, I still feel like they're closer to winning this year than they would be next year if they cashed it all in now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I still say it's a better bet that they'll win, they'll get to the playoffs this year than it would be next year if you sold at the deadline.
I have a thought on that, and I have a thought on what this all means specifically for one very important player that I think we should talk about on the other side.
Okay.
This is Byron Buxton's age 32 season, correct? Or 31? Either way.
Anyway.
He's old. He's at a point where you can't give away Byron Buxton seasons, and this is the best one he's had. I think all things considered, durability, how he's played, everything, you can't just throw that away down the stretch. I think between that, the front office basically appealing for their futures in the organization, Rocco appealing for his future in the organization. Because if the front office is gone, I don't see any reason for Rocco to be retained. I think they're tied together now at this point.
You would think, yes. You would think.
I'm not saying go and buy anything. I think Eric Fetty could be an option, but I think you got to stay the course, as our boys like to say, ride the wave.
Yeah, I still Buxton doesn't turn 32 until December, so I think.
Okay, so it's age 31 then.
Yes. I don't know if that changes your thinking at all or whatever, but
no, it's after 30 and he's having a phenomenal season. I'm not ready to throw that away just because we might not be as good as we thought we were. If you back into the playoffs with 83 wins, you're in the playoffs, man. That's where it all starts. And so I'm ready to go down with the ship, frankly.
Well, I'm glad you are. Yeah, I am too. I have been. I think about Buxton. Buxton, I mentioned that before about how Brock Stewart it's been an amazing comeback, and he basically hasn't had a full season. I don't know if he ever really has had a full season.
I don't think so.
But this is, Buxton has only had a couple of those. Right. So even if the thing about the situation where the Twins are, even if you sell off some of these parts and you think you're going to go for it next year, you're still kind of relying on Buxton doing this again and staying healthy.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Right.
For one. And really the X factor in the Twins this year and next year is still Correa.
Right.
Correa has to, and he can't just hit 300 and not walk and not hit for power. He's got to be kind of like how he was somewhat last year. And we haven't really seen that yet. And to a lesser extent, Royce Lewis is like that too. We're seeing positive signs with Royce Lewis. He's still not hot with power, over 500, 600 slugging percentage for a month at a time or whatever. Those are the kinds of things you need to do. You know how you like to say, depending on what your stats are at any given moment, that's not really what kind of hitter you are. It's there's peaks and valleys. And as good as, as Lewis has been lately, his peaks still bugs me a little bit that he's not hitting like he did the last time he was really good, going back to 2023. basically. So, you have that. You have Correa. You have Buxton. I could see, actually, where a new regime would come in and go, I just don't trust this core to stay healthy, to be productive. Why not? I mean, you can't do anything with Buxton. He's not leaving. But as far as moving everybody else, you could get something significant for Joe Ryan. You could half start over. I could see it. I could see it definitely happening if the Pohlads ever bleep on the pot and sell the team. But who knows when that's going to be? I don't know. It's we've looked so far at Locked On Twins 8, and I want to, rather than jam all this in at the end, I want our listeners to know something. We want to make sure that you're subscribed to Locked On Twins, because that way you don't miss any of the great Twins content we've got for you. That includes the Twins postcast with Luke Inman live after the final out of every game. Today, for example, after the Dodgers game is over. You get 2 shows for the price of 1, and it's actually all free. So I just wanted to have that little interlude for a second to say, fans, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Twins, because that way you get the best kind of content. But we've got a few more minutes in this episode, and I just they're kind of the Twins are sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. The more I think about it, I don't know if we can count on Buxton being out there all the time next year, having another great Renaissance season. It would be great if it happened. Not sure where Carlos Correa is headed. Not really sure where Royce Lewis is headed. Is Brooks Lee going to hit? What position is Luke Keyshaw going to play? What's the deal with Matt Wallner? Sometimes not hitting righties anymore and only hitting lefties. I sort of, with this team, I go from, wow, there's a lot of talent there. Why aren't they winning? To, I could see quite easily the next regime blowing this up, with the exception of 2 or 3 guys, and starting over. It's kind of a confusing time to be a Twins fan. I don't know what's going to happen next. You got an idea?
Well, and even blowing it up might look like trading Trevor Larnach for the starting pitcher of Trevor Larnach, or the starting pitcher version of Matt Wallner, which would probably be a guy who has crazy velocity but needs a little better command or something, or to get a changeup, something like that. I could see that too, like some level of shuffling of the deck chairs, because I do believe the talent is there, but if it's not at the right place on each other's curves as far as how they're going to develop and everything, you could rattle some cages and shuffle some deck chairs and maybe see what you can do differently. It's going to be a fascinating time, as long as you maybe don't have your heart or loyalties set on one specific person, whether it's a front office person, a coaching staff person, a player. They're going to have to get creative, and whether that means building around the guys they have and, flipping a few guys for someone they can get a look at. I don't know what it'll mean. I really don't. But I think they have enough pieces in place to make a run down the stretch, and I think they should trust that. I know that it's been, April, May, June. We're coming up on 4 months into the season with only 2 full months to go. You are kind of who you are after 66.7% of the season, but we also say you win 54, you lose 54, and it's the other 54 that matter. Well, that's about what's left. So I don't know. I say ride the wave with this group and see what happens.
So you kind of answered this final question, but Bader, Coulombe, Castro,
keep them.
How likely you think you say keep them? What will happen in the next 8 days?
One of the 3 will be traded, and it'll probably be Coulombe.
I think I agree. I see with Bader having like 1 foot in the door of a contract for next year, and it isn't that expensive if they were to mutually agree. And I actually don't know what that would entail entirely either. If Bader is like, should they talk to him about? Well, they can't talk to him right now about that. They don't, because they don't have an owner for next year.
Well, so 2 years, $25 million. Is that in the ballpark? I don't know.
I don't know.
This is also his best offensive year in quite a few, and that's
It is, but I feel like that has to do with health.
But he's already matched last year's home run total. He's right around there for walks in, I think it's like 55 fewer games. I mean, he's having a really nice year, and we shouldn't just, hand wave that. With Coulombe, I think what's going to happen is the price is just going to be too tantalizing, and they'll say, listen, if we get a prospect that factors into our plans as soon as next year, like a Noah Miller, it's hard to say no to that.
And even with Kalen Culpepper on the come in the minor leagues at that position, and other people, the Twins have in the lower minor leagues, they're building up some shortstop depth here with the recent drafts and so forth. Even that, Noah Miller becomes again a player that, well, let's say you have a better player in the organization that can sort of jump him in the depth chart. Well, you still have a younger player to make another trade somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And Coulombe, his contract's expiring. Who knows how long it'll be till his arm expires, and it would make sense. That would be, but that would, that could be the difference between making the playoffs and not. It could come down to 2 or 3 games that he would pitch in that he wouldn't be around for, that would be going to Funderburk. I don't know how Funderburk that would be. But anyway, we want to thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night, which brings you every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So for my friend Brandon Warne, I'm Dave Brown, wishing you all a very pleasant good evening, saying also that we will Alexei Casilla tomorrow night because he's not being traded. It's too late.